Hey, what's up, guys? Shuckleking here, bringing you Week 9 power rankings for WBE Season 6. Getting to the end of it, getting the playoffs pretty soon. Pretty exciting stuff. And I'm here at my co-host. Introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? OGalbina here. Getting to the end finally, which is pretty exciting. This has been a fun series, but it's a taxing one. So I'm excited to hopefully get into playoffs here soon. The seasons are rounding off.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, very exciting. And hopefully we can get some good playoff games, but we got to go through these next couple weeks first. So they're all fun, so it's all good. Hopefully we can see some good memes in the last week of the season for a lot of the games that don't necessarily matter. But unfortunately, I guess the alternative is just to not play the game at all. And this is part of the reason why we're uploading this a little bit later in the week, because 2 games weren't played this week. So Otto got a forfeit win over Fruitberries, and Patty got a forfeit win over Magnitude. Does really make a difference for anyone in those situations except for Otto. It basically
didn't Otto clinch already as well? It just helped the seeding pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah, he's still in 3rd place. So. Solid for him. I think he has a chance to get to 2nd place if Joey loses and he wins with a lot of differential, but otherwise he's probably locked in 3rd or 4th place. Probably 3rd. So solid for Otto there. Get a win while you can. But we did have 6 games this week, and we'll start off with Uzi and Thatsa +1. So Thatsa +1 didn't play blindfolded. I think he actually prepped a little bit this week, and he was able to get a win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this was probably his best showing this season. Definitely better than when he blindfolded, which is cool. So maybe he just needed that to switch it up. He won this game 4-0 pretty decidingly. There was a little bit of hacks throughout the game, which is definitely unfortunate, but I thought the DD Kingdra was definitely a very, very cool CBad, especially the scale shot coming up super clutch, which is cool to see, because the Hydra would have been a decent check otherwise, but it being able to break through that Haban and then get a couple hits afterwards was really, really clutch, which was obviously super cool. He played it pretty decently as well, really broke through Uzi's team. The only play that I didn't agree with was I think he DD'd on the Polytoad at minus... not the Polytoad, the Poliwrath, my bad, I'm getting it mixed up. When he was at like a -2 defense because of scale shots and poisoned, I feel like just getting the chip off on the Polytoad might have been a little bit nicer, but to each own doesn't really matter all that too much. Night Days ended up coming really clutch for him. Usually you'll see Zorak running Dark Pulse opposed to the Night Days, but it ended up getting a defense drop on the Poly...
accuracy drop.
Defense drop, sorry. Accuracy drop on the Poliwrath, which was... actually pretty game saving and really, really nice for Thatsa, allowing his Mimikyu later in the game to dodge a liquidation, which ended up really helping. He was able to position the SD Mimikyu well, which he hadn't done very well this season up to this point. So awesome on that. That was definitely really cool. It would have been nice if Uzi had a Hydreigon to resist that Shadow Sneak, but that's what happens when you sack early in game to the Kingdra. So I think Thatsa was able to, really kind of fulfill that offensive game plan that he's been kind of, preaching and talking about, where he just overwhelms his opponent. He was able to overwhelm a lot of Uzi's, checks to his offense and, break through with Mimikyu in the end. So good showing by him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, overall, pretty solid play by Thatsa this week. So hopefully he can finish out this season pretty strong. I think he can still finish 4 and 6. So that definitely wouldn't be that bad of a showing for a first-time draft league player. But Uzi, I don't know. The skill shot Kingdra to get past his Hydreigon was just cool. It's kind of hard for Uzi to kind of see that, because I would imagine he probably lived a +1 outrage. I'm not entirely sure. I would imagine he probably would have lived it because of the Haban Berry, but Scale Shot breaks the Haban Berry after the first hit, and then all the other hits are going to be double the damage. So unfortunate for Uzi there. Honestly, I think he honestly played fine this game. It was cool to have protect Poliwrath for the Kingdra that had bounce. I'm not sure if that was the game plan or not. I'm guessing not. I think it was Toxic Protect, so I guess it was just to rack up toxic damage, but it ended up working for him. But he let his tank growth at some point get pretty weakened to Bolton, and then couple that with the miss with the Politoed on the Mimikyu. The Toxic Mimikyu is basically able to win the game there. Should Uzi probably have gone for Toxic as opposed to breaking it a Sky as the first opportunity? Probably. It would have like basically guaranteed that the Mimikyu would have died at some point, even if Uzi had to sack a couple mons. So just unfortunate there. If he didn't miss with Day Shot, he probably wins the game. So it's kind of tough to really fault Uzi necessarily in this match. I have him still at 9 from last week, as do you. So definitely makes sense there. Can't really punish Uzi. He just had I would say an overall pretty unfortunate season, honestly. And he's not going to be able to make playoffs, which is unfortunate. I think he definitely is a worthy candidate to make playoffs, but it's how it rolls sometimes.
Unfortunately, yeah. Uzi's definitely a good player, but everybody has their, off seasons. I'm sure next season, WBE or whatever draft league he does next, he'll do great. So.
Well, I don't have my off seasons, but everyone else does. But, no. Okay, so next game we got is Feint versus Chimpact. So closer game than I think people would have anticipated going into it. A team of two people that traded a couple months to each other at the midpoint of the season. And Chimp got the better hand, but yeah, Feint made it pretty close. And even like when Chip was talking about his like team build at the beginning, he knew that like Iron Defense Sigilith was going to be a pretty big problem. And it was. He was able to, Feint was able to kill Quillfish, Klefki, wear down to Snorlax a little bit. So definitely pretty problematic there. What Chimp, I think that kind of turned the game into Chimp's, a decent chance for Chimp to win, probably in his favor, was killing the Pangoro to a Dazzling Gleam with the Sigilith. That was just super nice, because Pangoro was a pretty decent nuisance, especially to the Snorlax. And then once the Cofagrigus was pretty weakened and the Pangoro was gone, the Snorlax was going to be able to just sit on the field all day. So, minus the Scizor, but again, he brought Feint brought a X-Scissor. Scissor, so that's pretty funny. But overall, I think Chimp played fine. It was just having to get past that initial Cofagrigus and basically able to win with Curse, Rest, Talk. Not Rest Talk. It was 2 attacks, Curse, Rest, Snorlax. He also crit the Miltank. Chimp crit Feint's Miltank, and I'm pretty sure Miltank would have lived 2 hits from the Crocodile if there wasn't a crit. So that was a little bit of unfortunate hacks on Feint's end, but Chimp got the win. He secured a playoff spot, so you gotta do what you gotta do. Chimp's been pretty unlucky this whole season, so having a tiny bit of luck go your way, definitely
it makes
okay
up
with
for
that.
That's a game a little bit earlier in the season.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
I think you touched on it pretty well. I don't think Feint played very bad. I think that the early game Kofag put on crazy pressure, like you said, and really was a huge nuisance to Chimp's team. But that Pangoro play just wasn't the move, in my opinion.
No.
I understand he didn't have great pivots into Sigilith, but I don't know if the Pangoro was a sack, because like you said, the moment that thing went down, and being that the Kofag was poisoned and just liable to get very chipped and things like that, getting rid of losing that Pangoro basically ensured that he was going to lose to a Curselax. Like, there was nothing else on his team really to break that. I mean, Scizor can to an extent, but if Snorlax gets a curse up, you're going to chew any hit from that and blow it back with a Heat Crash. So like, even then, and it can rest up on pretty much every other member on the team that he ended up bringing. So that was definitely very, very unfortunate. I think that was just like the main thing, is just realizing what your opponent has in the back and what you need to ensure that you don't lose to it. Kind of, thinking a couple turns ahead. Like, if I sack this Pokemon, if I lose this and he clicks Dazzling Gleam or Air Slash even, because I'm assuming that probably would have blown it backwards too.
Yeah, exactly.
If I lose this Pokemon, do I lose to this thing later on? And the answer was yes, just because he didn't have sufficient things to break through it. So that's really my only big gripe with Feint, is that, and then obviously X-Scissor, please just run Bug Bite. Please run Bug Bite. But other than that, though, I mean, even like, especially in that Master 2 when you're playing a Snorlax, like, that could be clutch. Bug Bite and Snorlax, if it happens to be like I know the Super Berries aren't as good this gen, but if it happens to be a Super Berry or something like that, being able to chew that up is super clutch. So,
100%.
Unfortunate. Unfortunate for Feint. He's shown little bright spots throughout the season where it's like, oh dang, he's starting to figure it out a little bit, and then there's just a couple lapses in judgment of him kind of playing in the moment. And I think he just played a little bit too much in the moment this week, opposed to thinking about his end game.
Oh, definitely. But hopefully he can get a little bit more acclimated. I raised him a couple spots this week. I think he played pretty well overall, even though he lost the game. He played very well. I think the score
was a little bit more brutal.
Oh, definitely.
Than the actual.
But I think Chimp needed a play for differential to secure a playoff spot, so it kind of makes sense that Chip was going for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next game we have this week was Vizually versus Nexus. Kind of hard to judge this game, but yeah, Nexus was able to get the win and stay in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, so Nexus played pretty well this game, though. I was actually pretty impressed by him this game. There was definitely some lapses in judgments in plays he shouldn't have made. But one thing in particular I think he used really well was the type null, using it great as a slow, bulky pivot, getting in to get his more offensive members in for free. The Sharpedo misgen, I'm sure you'll say something about it too, but the Sharpedo misgen was huge on Viz's part, obviously being rough skin, which isn't the best ability for the Sharpedo, really putting him on the back foot because Nexus took so much chip on all of his Sharpedo checks early in the game, and he even realized himself, he's like, oh damn, I'm about to lose to Sharpedo in the end game. But fortunately, it was rough skin sets that really helped it out. I think that he played pretty well, though. He was able to, kind of set up a Keldeo endgame, despite the miss into the full para on the Rachi. That could have been really unfortunate. Other than that, though, it wasn't the craziest game in the world. It was just kind of like a going through the motions type thing. The only big gripes I have with Nexus is obviously that the Rachi was 100% going to be cold for that game, especially with the way Viz was playing it. He brought in hard on the Weavile before. He's going to bring it in again. I think Weavile was very good in that end game. So, sacking it just to die to that Drain Punch was a little bit unfortunate.
Oh, definitely.
He was a little bit too aggressive at times, going Keldeo on Rachi so often, because again, he was very weak to Sharpedo. So taking a bunch of chip on the thing when that is a pretty decent natural check, if you keep it healthy enough, it probably can live a Psychic Fangs or something of the sorts. Or you might even not even have that coverage. It was definitely a little unfortunate, but other than that, he played decently safe. He played earlier in the game. He played smart with his Weavile, not risking the roll on the poison jab to the Primarina, not really knowing it spread all too well, and realizing even if it is just like a max HP Prim or something like that, it was a roll to kill the Prim. So realizing Weavile is really good here. It takes one more hit and it's in range. He played smart in that way. So it was a decent showing by Nexus. He definitely had a few things go his way. That was obviously great, and he was able to take home a win.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Nexus played his cards right and considered all the circumstances of, should I go for an attack? What's the downside? What's the plus side? What are the possibilities? Is it worth going for the risk? Like the Colbur Berry on Jirachi, he figured it was Colbur Berry, so he didn't go for knockoff initially, which was good. I think towards the end, I think he almost had to go for knockoff to get chip off on the Jirachi and then win the game with Keldeo, but I think Nexus played pretty well there. Viz, it's kind of hard to judge. And turn one, I don't remember if Viz had toxic spikes on the Dragalge or not. I mean, he killed turn one with Draco Meteor on the Dradigod, which is great. If you got a T-spike up, nothing took it. It was literally 6 grounded mons to get poisoned and no removal. Outside of if something had boots. So that would have been really nice if he had it. Again, don't remember if he had it. He got a kill on Draudigon, so that's also not that bad of a result there. He got twice. Yeah, I think you mentioned it before, but Nexus hard switched in Keldeo on Jirachi. Very bold, especially because the first time Viz got powered, which was unfortunate. Second time he went for Zen Headbutt and did 60-70%. He did a lot of damage, so it would have been nice. I guess if he got the Zen Headbutt off the first time, the Nexus would have had to figure out a different switch into the Jirachi the second time. But yeah, that was just unfortunate that it came down to that. But Viz was basically setting up for a Sharpedo's at least somewhat sweep. The Rillaboom was still in the back, so it's not like Viz automatically won the game if he were speed boost Sharpedo, but he basically sacked off his Rotom to guaranteed bring the Heliolisk in range of a Sharpedo hit, because Sharpedo didn't have anything to hit Heliolisk super effectively. It just had Psychic Fangs and I think Crunch. No, like Close Combat or Earthquake. So he needed Chip on the Heliolisk. So I agree with Viz making a play of basically sacking off Rotom to weaken Heliolisk. So that way Sharpedo could basically win minus the Rillaboom. And then he had a Drachi in the back for Rillaboom. So that wasn't that big of an issue. So just unfortunate that he misgened it. But Viz is in playoffs. Really doesn't make a difference in terms of his ranking. I think I moved them slightly. I think I have him at 5 this week as opposed to 4. It's whatever. You also have him at 5. So, yeah, I think 3 to 5 in the rankings could all be interchangeable, really.
It definitely matters more so for Nexus opposed to
oh, definitely. Yeah, that was great. And he got a couple differential points, so it's good for Nexus. It's very tough for him to make playoffs still, but not impossible. So good that Nexus put himself in that position to at least give himself a chance.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Next game is CBad versus Callum. This was just a blowout. Kind of crazy that Callum was just able to sweep with Poltegeist with what's the move? Wonder Room.
That was the first time I've ever seen anybody run that move in a competitive setting. I thought it was really cool. That was super exciting.
I didn't. Yeah, it just. I don't really understand the justification. I kind of understand the justification. It switches the defenses, so.
Like, I looked at a calc from like just a max HP Gudra because in my head I was thinking, I was watching this game with a buddy and he was like, oh, that's a cool ring. I was like, well, yeah, doesn't +2 Poltergeist just 2-hit KO it anyways, especially if you sash, like when you just 2 buttons. And he was like, no, not AV Gudra. And I looked up max HP, not even Spadef AV. Max HP Gudra took like 35 to 40 something from a +2 Shadow Ball.
At +2?
Yeah.
Oh man,
max
I thought it was
AV. So like I think it was him preparing
with
for
AV.
AV.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like obviously, CBad was like naive Scarf, so it didn't as much matter. But like I see the reasoning in prep.
Well, even if it was,
yeah.
So like. Yeah, even if he was that set, like he wouldn't have killed even with Wonder Guard versus just going for 2 Shadow Balls. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I still don't think it really made sense. And like, yeah, he got the kill, which is cool. The tech was just strange, but it worked. And
it
like,
worked.
He could have just switched too with the Gudra and then brought it back in. But I guess he still would have been in that same situation. But
actually, looking max H. Oh wait. So even if he was max HP with the switching the Run Room, he does kill the thingy after rocks. He does kill it. So like if he was max HP, AV Gudra,
he didn't have rocks, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. And it was like a 50 roll or something like that.
Yeah, it was like a 50-50 chance. I think I remember running that calc. It was like max HP Assault Fist.
Yeah, and then I switched to the fences. I put it down to base 70, and it looks like it's.
Yeah, there's So. It worked out. He was able to basically kill he was able to kill the Skarmory, which was really the only mon that was in the way. Gastrodon was also there, and Callum was able to set up on the Gastro, which kind of a tough play, but you might talk about it, but I think CBad should have just continuously clear smogged. Like, if you're in that position and like you just lose... Especially because that your Gudra is probably not going to take a +2 hit or take 2 +2 hits because it's not Spadef for some reason.
Not Assault Vest, yeah.
Then you just have to sack your Gastro at that point to make sure it doesn't set up. So good for Callum. Another pretty convincing win. He's had quite a run the last like 3-4 weeks of like really big blowout wins, and I think we both have him at 3rd in our power rankings. I think it's pretty well deserved. So good work for Callum.
Yeah, he's definitely shot up. CBad definitely helped him out a little bit, though. There was a couple plays where I think, like you said, he could have avoided a straight blowout. I don't know if he necessarily won the game. I did like Callum's build a lot, though, too. I love the bulky Scarf Flygon. I thought that was cool because dude just got massacred by Tarak on matchup. So I thought that was a cool, nice little tech to have. But the main thing early in the game, too, this really could have saved it, is he was in turn 1 with his Tarak versus Cinderace. As the Cinderace U-turned out. And instead of going for rocks, he went for edge. And I think rocks would have been super, super clutch that scenario, especially with the Poltergeist in the back, where it's often going to be a focus sash variant and stuff like that. I think that rocks would have been really clutch in that instance, personally.
I think going for Stone Edge was fine. Like, especially if Like the whole tech.
I guess
of
he
it,
didn't have great switch-ins, but
the whole tech of it was Chopple Berry. He goes for high jump kick and would normally kill, but because it's Chopple, he wouldn't kill with a Stone Edge in return. If he hit, though, close combat probably honestly kills anyway. But regardless, I don't necessarily fault him for going for.
Yeah, no, it's not like an awful
there.
play, but
yeah.
At the same time, you also have to like keep in mind your opponent's potential sets and what they might potentially do is, and it could be a sash lead, it could be obviously Chopple, though that's not something you automatically think. I'm not even gonna pretend like you should have known that he was gonna scout for Chopple. No, I'm not saying that, but a bunch of different options, and he doesn't know these scarfs, so he could potentially think like, oh no, he's scared of me being scarfed. So like Rock seemed like a pretty free-ish play to me too, especially because he did have pivots into the Cinderace pretty freely afterwards. Like, yeah, you might lose your Chopple, but you still have a whole Gastrodon. You still have things like that can still take on the Cinderace pretty well. And Rock's being up would have been nice. And then obviously, excuse me, obviously you mentioned the Gastrodon, not just spamming Clear Smog on the, on the Poltergeist. He should have looked at his team and realized, dang, this thing gets up to +2. I don't deal with it very well, especially if it's Focus Sash because of his Goodra set. So if he Shell Smashes you go into Goodra like he did, even if he wasn't the Wonder Room set, he just Shadow Balls twice with that specific set, and 2-it KOs it, and then the game's pretty much over
sure.
at that point. So I think he could have played a little bit better around it, but by preparing a little bit better for it, but it happens. It's not the biggest deal in the world. It was a cool set by Callum. He positioned it well. And there's another play, man. There's a CBad is this thing where he has his Skarmory with its sturdy, and he'll trade a lot of damage on it in order to get like either a Roost off or like a random Toxic off or something like that. And he let his Skarm take a big Volt switch, which was very unfortunate because one, it put it in range of the Poltergeist, I think, and two, if he was like a more offensive Scarf Flygon, losing Skarm was really tough for him, especially like really opening him up for a Flygon in the end game. So like there's just certain things where it's another instance of thinking in that turn in the moment and not thinking about your end game very well, which I think was CBad's downfall this week.
Exactly. Sure. Maybe pivoting from what your initial game plan was based on the what the current situation is in the game. So sure. So that's that game. Next game we got is Moet versus Aim.
So Pokemon won this game 4-0. Brought a very hyper offensive team, which is something he's done all season. I don't think he's brought defensive Wish Sylveon once, which is cool because like he's brought in a lot of like specs or super fast Calm Mind variants. And it did really well this week. I love the specs Noivern bring. His flying resist was a Duraludon, so like there was a lot of really cool offensive options that Aim ended up bringing. He brought the double weather to kind of counteract Moet really being able to go for any Sun shenanigans with Venusaur, because Venusaur was a big threat to his team. So that was obviously super dope. The Sand Slash popped off. Ice Cream living on 1 was ridiculously clutch, being able to get up that Veil and allowing Sand Slash to set up a Swords Dance and just triple axle, knock off Earthquake through everything. I thought that was really cool to see that mon go in. But this game was literally just a case of Moet bringing a little bit more of a slow, balanced type of defensive team, and Aim just really overwhelming him with offense, with everything just being offensive and clicking buttons. So it was a good performance by Aim, and he was able to pick up a 4 dub and kind of just, again, cement himself at the top 2 of the rankings.
Definitely. Yeah, solid win by Aim. Did he get a little lucky? Probably. A little bit. With Moet missing the sleep pattern to Gigalith. That was pretty unfortunate. Aim would have lived 1 Solar Beam, but not 2. So he had to consider it was... I could probably do the math pretty quickly. So he had like a 75% chance to hit the sleep pattern, and then like a 2 out of 3 chance to... Let me do the math. So 75% chance to live, or to land a sleep pattern, and then a 2/3 chance to not get a first turn wake. That's like a 50-50. So Moet basically lost that 50-50 of missing a sleep pattern, and then he lost his Venusaur, which honestly went in, especially with Sun up. I guess Vanillix was still alive. That could have slowed down the Venusaur to an extent, but I think being if the Venusaur was a full HP, then it definitely could have done pretty decent damage. Though granted, if it was Solar Beam Venusaur, then Vanillix could have came in, and there are other plays around it. So it was just unfortunate that Moet didn't have an opportunity to make plays and just lost his Venusaur like that. And then the Vanillix from AIM was able to live on one hit. Moet didn't upload his side, so I don't really know what his sets were in rolls and such. I don't know how big of a roll that was for the poison jab to let him live on 1 HP and not get a poison, but it basically allowed the Sandslash under Veil to basically win the rest of the game. And apparently the Gallade was pretty slow, so Sandslash would have outsped even outside of Hail. So again, not really sure how much of a difference it made, but it really didn't give Moet any chances to win that game, even if Joey probably had the advantage of winning.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But Moet, okay, so Moet is the last person that might not be able to make playoffs. He's in very good shape. If he wins next week, he's gonna make playoffs. So we'll see. And I think he plays Emvee, so that's gonna be a pretty interesting situation there, because I think Emvee probably wants to win to make sure he gets number 1 seed and gets to choose his playoff opponent. He might not care about that, but I think I would.
Oh yeah. But speaking of Emvee, he's the last game we have to talk about this week, yeah?
Yeah, Emvee versus James. Matchup I was definitely excited to see. Emvee's probably not going to show his hand. I honestly don't think James is going to show his hand much either, just because both are safe to make playoffs. And it seems like James was using this battle just to try out a couple different sets that he wanted to do. Emvee brought a pretty typical bring that he's brought for most of the season, which is like a decent amount of bulk, and then Dragapult at the end that could just revenge kill whatever he wants. Not that it's really that hard to revenge kill James's team because it's so slow, but he was able to Dragapult, lead Dragapult, just did a lot of damage with Emvee. He was able to weaken the Umbreon, was able to weaken the Corviknight, and it freed him up for Dragapult to do well late in the game, but also freed up the Nasty Plot Skunk Tank, which I don't know. I don't think I've seen anyone play Skunk Tank as well as Emvee has this season. So that was pretty cool to see the Skunk Tank do as much damage as it did. So at the very end, Emvee was able to get up rocks and keep them up the whole game, which was pretty clutch. At the very end, Emvee predicted, the Rotom Wash to come in on the +2 Bronzong. When the Frostlass could have came in on a body press. So it's basically a 50-50 there. James had a slight chance to win if he got the 50-50 right. Honestly, I don't think there was a whole lot of, it was just luck at that point, guessing which move the Emvee was going to go for. And James picked Drug and Emvee picked right. So he 100% won at that point, Emvee did. So not a whole lot to say on Emvee's side. It was pretty convincing, all his games have been basically this whole season. So go work for Emvee. He should be able to clinch up the number 1 seed, especially if he wins the last week.
Yeah, I think you pretty much touched on it. Emvee had a really, really nice build too. I really liked his build, just really taking advantage of James' slower, fatter build and stuff like that. Lots of sub, lots of, just
the center scorch is cool.
Damage. Yeah, the
something that James didn't expect.
Mm-hmm. And its coverage just really massacred his team. So that was honestly a really, really cool bring. I don't think James played too awful. The early game spike was really nice. It really went a long way in helping chip down Emvee's team, especially when he didn't have the most breaking power versus his defensive core and stuff like that in the build that Emvee ended up bringing. Though he made another great play later though when he knew that he forced a switch, but instead of getting up a second spike, he peppered the Centiskorch with a shadow ball, realizing that he didn't switch in very well to the Frostlass, especially later in the game. If he got a lot of chip on that Centiskorch, he can click Ice Beam pretty freely against a lot of his team as well, being that the Ice Resist was a Bronzong. So that was definitely really smart by him.
But would the damage early on would have been nice on the Centiskorch too. If he got
after the first
40-50% of damage with a Shadow Ball or whatever, and that Centiskorch probably wouldn't have been nearly as big of a threat. So there was a pros and cons to go for the spike versus just attacking the Centiskorch.
Yeah, which I think he realized in the second one, obviously going for said spike and stuff like that. But this was really just a matter of him not really being able to break through, kind of being taken advantage of because of his slower team and stuff like that, which was Really unfortunate. Like you said, the sub-center scorch was great. Nasty Bot Skuntank was also a really cool team mod against his team because it still had the natural bulk to live a lot of the hits from the more passive stuff, but outsped a good majority of his team as well. Really being able to put some pressure on, and really force in a lot of the more annoying mons to his team and chip them down for things like Dragapult and stuff like that. Emvee was just able to utilize his resources really well, keeping sufficient sacks to where he never had to play super aggressive and really get put in a bad spot. I think you mainly touched on everything, though. I don't think James played awful. He just didn't have a lot to really break through Emvee's build. But I don't think either of them really bought their A team against each other, because Emvee hasn't done so the last couple weeks because he's very adamant on saving stuff for it, and James has no reason to either. He's not going to be in a position where he can really pick his opponents anyways too. So he definitely should be kind of saving stuff, especially if he's already clutched at this point. So it was a fun game to watch, though. James definitely played pretty well. Just Emvee's build was really nice, and he was able to put himself in a pretty safe position to win.
Exactly. Yeah. No. James played pretty well. A couple predictions at the end that he got wrong.
The ice punch was a little over aggressive. Yeah. The ice punch was the song.
Yeah, and even before that, he went for Drain Punch on the Skuntank when Ice Punch probably killed. And that would have been nice to chip the Togekiss with an Ice Punch. That would have done a lot of damage. But yeah, the Ice Punch on the zone. Probably Knock was probably the safest play if you were predicting maybe a Togekiss to come in. Knock seemed like a pretty decent middle ground. Or even Drain Punch just to do damage to Bronzong. But yeah, overall, I think this was probably the closest game of the week, most entertaining. So good work by both sides. But yeah, we got week 10 coming off. Not a whole lot of exciting stuff. Pretty high chance that Moet makes playoffs, though. He is playing Emvee. Who is Nexus playing week 10? Let me pull it up. He is playing Chimpact. So that's interesting because Chimpact's already secured and he doesn't really need to put any effort into this game. So I would assume Nexus probably gets that win. So to see how much differential that Nexus is able to win by, and see if Moet is able to beat Emvee's really good team. Emvee's team, even if he brings a subpar team, is probably still better than Moet's team. But
the daycare service, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. So a couple exciting games. But yeah, next week, week 10 power rankings. I'll probably do an overall power ranking versus the latest. I'll just say overall who I think did best and worst and such this season.
Yeah. Because there's going to be a bunch of meme games. There's going to be a bunch of very low effort games. It's not going to be
hopefully we don't have a lot of forfeits this week. Hopefully we get some pretty funny games to watch.
Talk about. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, anything else to say?
Nope. Looking forward to rounding off the season and running into playoffs and seeing who can take home that title. Should be a good one. There's a lot of great coaches this season that have had really cool
I'm sure you're subbed to the OG at this point, but make sure you go sub. He posts a lot more content outside of this. I haven't been posting a whole lot of other stuff lately, but maybe I will for the new DLC. We'll see. But yeah, until next time, later guys.
Later.